Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dev Designer podcast. Today, I am joined by Aaron Brown. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? How's everything?
Good, good. Aaron is a friend, partner with a former guest, Iquan Worthington. He was on a couple episodes ago. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about your design background and your family?
Okay. So I guess if I was to start, I'll start with my art/design background. Quick fun fact: my art teacher in high school was Queen Latifah's mom. So Queen
What?
Latifah's mom was the one who springboarded me into art and design. And how I met Queen Latifah's mom was in the hallway because I decided that I was going to try to be I guess a graffiti artist, and I was going to try to tag on lockers. And as I'm tagging my little name, which is Ash at the time, that was my little signature name. I'm tagging, and then I feel somebody tap me on the shoulder, and she goes, "Hi, since you like to draw on lockers, you'll be my new art student." She takes me to the office and she puts me in her class. And unfortunately, I have her at like 8 a.m. in the morning, and she's like on me because I guess she sees that I have talent, but she's also like, "We're going to keep you out of trouble, Mr. Guy who wants to draw on lockers." So that is kind of like what springboarded me into art and learning more about
That's really cool. And how many years did you have her as a teacher then?
it. So I had her as a teacher from my sophomore year until I graduated in my senior year. And I mean, she definitely pushed me. And anytime I did something that was like crazy, she would like get on me and then like throw me in like an art contest or into a some kind of like art show.
Yeah. And then post high school and that art experience, what did you do next?
The complete opposite. The complete opposite. I think, I'll date myself a little bit. At the time, there were graphic designers, but there weren't. I feel like the field is kind of flooded with more designers now than when I was coming up. When I was coming up, I thought I was going to be a comic book colorist because I read a lot of comic books, and then in the back of the book would be a listing of all the jobs. So I just thought I was going to do that. But by the time I graduated high school, there weren't really, unless you just knew about art schools and things of that nature. I was ignorant to those things, so I was very unfamiliar of what that could be for me as a career. So I thought I was going to do that. I ended up going to Berkeley College, the School of Business, because I had received a 2-year scholarship to go there. So I did that. And, I thought I was just going to walk around with a briefcase and sign contracts because I thought I was going to be like a business person. Quickly realized that that was not enough to really get me the kind of job that I thought that I should have. So then I transferred to Rutgers, and the girl that I was dating at the time, her mother was kind of like in the music industry. So she got me an internship working for Rockaware and WooWare. And that's kind of how I got my start in design, because in doing that internship, I was doing a lot of intern like stuff like gopher, go get this, go get that. Then they liked how I was dressed, so they had me style outfits for photo shoots. So I was dressing and putting outfits together for artists like Beanie Siegel and Memphis Bleak and things of that nature. And then I would finish up all these things very, very quickly. And so, I think they were just like, "I don't know what to do with this kid. He's still here." So they threw me in a room with a t-shirt designer named Nigo. And if I could find Ego, I would thank him heavily. But they threw me in a room with him. And I was just kind of like a pesky young kid, like over his shoulder, looking at his t-shirt designs. And I think part of him was like aggravated, and part of him was like, "I'm gonna help this kid out." And so he brings in a old school iMac, and I'm gonna date it for you. It's like the Hunchback of Notre Dame with the real big back, and then it has like the neon colors. I'm sure if we do an internet search, we'll find it
Yeah.
online. But he bought that in, threw some fonts on it, threw like some tech pack templates, and he goes, "Hey, if you're going to be in here with me, you're not going to just be looking over my shoulder, you're going to design some shirts. So he was like, I want you to design 3 shirts. If I like one of them, maybe I'll print it. So I'm like, okay. So he kind of shows me like the basics in Illustrator on how to kind of like move type around, change colors on stuff like. So I just kind of followed his lead, put some fonts together, gave him 3 t-shirt designs, and then at the end of my internship, he hands me like a book, this giant notebook, and I still have it. It has a lot of the photo shoots that I was part of. And then in the very back is like a cutout from Vibe magazine. And it has one of the t-shirts that I designed. So not only did he decide to print one of my designs, but he also kind of like springboarded the Rockaware launch by taking that t-shirt and giving it the vibe. It's kind of like, oh, this is one of the Rockaware t-shirts that'll be released this fall. And so when I went back to Rutgers after that internship, I just kind of took a deep dive into design. I went to PC Richards and found me like and this is how I knew I really wanted to design was I went and got an IBM ThinkPad. That shows you how ignorant I was as far as design, and got that through Photoshop on it, through Illustrator on it, and through a program called PageMaker on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was teaching myself those 3 programs. And that's kind of what springboarded. So when I went back to Rutgers, I just took on any kind of design job I could find, newspaper, school magazines. And then I ended up getting a gig working for Rutgers University Press. And Rutgers University Press put out pamphlets because they a lot of pamphlets to kind of sell all the books that were under the Rutgers University Press line. And that's kind of how I got my start. So I went from Rockaware to Rockaware internship to going back to school and trying to figure it out.
That's cool. That's cool. And then did you get the degree from Rutgers or no? Did you just
I,
like launch out?
yeah, so I did get a degree from Rutgers. So I was always, I think, God was like, look, you think you're going to go over here and do all of this stuff. I keep trying to tell you, stay over here in this art design lane, stop being stubborn. So when I got to Rutgers, I first tried to get a marketing degree, but then they wanted me to take pre-calc and calculus 1. And I was like, I don't understand why I need this for marketing. So then I switched to a communications, and I stayed there for a bit. I stayed there long enough to make communications my minor. But then I had a friend at the time who I worked with. You know how when you're on campus, you work like these little security jobs. So I worked this little security job with her, and we would sign guests into people's dorms and stuff like that. So she would always see me with that IBM ThinkPad, and she was like, "I think you're talented, but I think you need a little bit more. I think you should go to Mason Gross." And when I tell you, this girl nagged me every time we worked together. She nagged me. You should go. You should go. I'm like, all right, listen. If you will just log on to sh.com, I will go and I will see what this school is about. And so I had a portfolio because I had design work from Rutgers University Press, as well as a few things that I worked on campus. So I showcased that portfolio to the head of Rutgers Mason Gross, the School of the Arts. And he was the head professor. His name was Paul Bruner. And he did like a lot of work for like Disney. And I sent in my portfolio, and then I got a call. He was like excited, and I was like nervous. So he's like, left a message on my dorm room phone, and he's like, I am calling to speak to the illustrious Aaron Brown, and I'm really excited about your portfolio. We would love to have you here at Mason Gross. I'd like for you to come in and meet me. And so I'm just like, oh man, I'm a little thrown, but I have been working. So I guess like he's looking at what I'm putting together and is like, this guy does solid work. So I go in, meet him. He's like, I want to throw you in the graphic design program. I'll start you in, graphic design 1 and 2, but you have to go back and take the prerequisites. So I went in straight to graphic design, but I still had to go back and do like drawing 1 and fundamentals of art and all that kind of stuff. Then I was in the graphic design program, and then he also was like, well, what are you doing this summer? And I was like, I'm going to catch up on the classes that all the prereqs. He said, no, 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 scratch that. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go see this guy, writes this name and number on a piece of paper. He was like, I think you should just go to South Africa for the summer. And so he sent me to someone that I already knew because I was working on a couple of on campus magazines. This guy he sent me to knew me because I worked on this on campus magazine. And so he was like, oh, do you want to go to South Africa to be a Fulbright scholar? Not a problem. You can shoot video and you can take photos of the experience for the professors and teachers who are writing curriculums. And so that's what I went to South Africa to do. And this was all due to just like embracing things as they were coming along. And so I did end up getting my degree in graphic design and video was my concentration. And then I had a minor in communication, and I graduated from Rutgers in 2004. My first job out of college was with Uniteller, which is kind of like a Western Union, but it's mainly, for different Spanish communities. And that was a cool job. I got to travel a little bit. I got to go to like Costa Rica, Guatemala, Mexico, even though I couldn't speak the language. But they hired me because they thought that I was a pretty good designer. And so I did a lot of the art direction for Uniteller for 2 years. And then, as creatives do, we like to go to, what do you call them? Like creative seminars and conferences. So I went to an Adobe conference, and one of the things were in Boston. So I went to Boston for 2 days and then came back to New York. And then they had the third day at FIT. And at FIT is where I met Adam Padilla, who would later hire me at the New Jersey Nets. And so in meeting him, my conversation is similar to the conversation that, you and I were having before we press record, just like kind of just shooting the crap with each other. Next thing you know, he goes, hey, I'm the creative lead for the New Jersey Nets. We're looking for guys like you. He was like, I know you're in an art direction position, but if you do come on board, I promise I'll make it worth your while. And I mean, he didn't lie. He didn't lie.
Yeah. It's I mean, hearing this story is it's like you put in the work, right? There's no doubt about that. You put in the work, but
Yeah.
what do you make of like these people all the way back from high school art teacher through meeting him with the Nets? What do you make of that?
I mean, I think it's right place, right time. I think it's sometimes it's kind of like what's meant for you. And then I always speak to, when I was a teen, art and basketball is kind of what kept me out of trouble, really, if I'm being honest. I played a lot of AAU, and then I did a lot of drawing and art contests. I think full circle, if I'm looking back at it, it's like the thing that kept me out of trouble, art and basketball, was the same thing that would feed me, in my young adult life. And, still now to this day, I still get, projects because of my background in art and basketball.
That's cool. And then there's a bunch of some basketball work and stuff I want to talk about in a minute, but tell us a little bit about your family too. How many kids you have,
Yep.
et cetera.
So I have 3 kids. My oldest is 6. My middle child is 3, about to turn 4 in February. And then my youngest son is 1, and he'll be turning 2 in April. So they're all about 2 years apart. My middle child is a girl. Her name's Amel. My oldest son is Ellis, which I skipped out on. And then my youngest son, his name is Isaiah. So three little peas in the pod, and yeah, they are interesting. All different though. That's what I'll definitely say. All my kids are definitely different.
Yeah. How has your work shifted since having kids enter the scene?
I think my mindset on work has shifted, if I would say anything. I think before I had kids, I feel like I would potentially stay at work and figure out things longer, maybe spend more time on designs than usual. Whereas now it's kind of like, I look at the time, and then I'm just, I'm trying to get as much as I could get done, and then I try to get out of here so that I can, get back with my kids and see see what's going on with them and see what their growth is, and just be around as a father, like,
Mhm.
I get that you got to work to take care of your kids, but also you want to be there for your kids. And so I find that's the biggest thing is I do spend a little less time on working on things. Now, if it's like a project, then, I'll sacrifice some of that time, but it's just important that you see your kids.
And are you full time somewhere now? Or are you
Yes.
out on your own? You are.
Yes. So currently I'm full time working for Pepsi Bottling in New
Oh, nice.
York. But I handle work for all of the facilities here in New York, and then a couple of the facilities in New Jersey. So I kind of handle most of it all of it for New York, and then a couple of the facilities in New Jersey. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of your design work. Beforehand, I always ask guests like, what are some favorite projects that you want to talk about? And you mentioned one, John Thompson's logo dedication to court design, which I looked up on your site. I'm not familiar with who John Thompson is.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about who he is and then this
Okay.
particular project.
So the legendary coach John Thompson he was basically the head coach for Georgetown basketball, and he is the man who coached some of the top NBA talent that you've seen within Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, Othello Harrington, and I could name a few more, but he's legendary coach, known heavily, in the basketball community. I think I've been a fan of his leadership as a coach, over the years. He passed away unfortunately over the pandemic, but it was an honor as a fan of basketball, as a fan of Georgetown basketball, to be able to do this dedication court. I think the biggest thing was when I actually met with his three children. And I think his daughter was the one to say it. She said he would be proud of what you created for him.
Mm,
So just big.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, on the video, I'll show some of the work, but you did a like the seal for, I guess, like I called it seal, but the center court graphic with the JT, monogram. It looks like you did some T-shirts. You did like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there was like a whole, they kind of had like a release day for it, just like a press day where they were, kind of cutting the ribbon for the release of the court. And then, his like I said, his children were there to kind of support it. They played like videos. They kind of talked about who he was as a man and things of that nature. And then, they had swag bags for all of the guests that came through to kind of show their love and support for the dedication court. And, it was just a awesome experience because of one, my basketball background, my love for basketball, one, and then two, just being able to do that for someone who I know is a legendary coach and who's had an impact on me as a teen. So that's why it was so big. And then to have his kids say what they said about what I created, because every designer wants that, right? Like it's we see our stuff out, we see people buying our stuff, we may see people wearing things that we created, or we see signs and billboards that we may have created, but nothing hits home more than, something like that when a family member could say something about your work like that. So
Hmm.
that's what
Yeah.
I think really made it big.
Yeah. And where is the court?
So the court is located in the New York main office for Nike. So they have a few offices, but their main office is where the court is located. I've seen a ton of videos where you'll see like Kevin Durant is practicing with some of the younger players on this court, and it's like, oh my God, you know, can't believe all these people are playing on this court. But
That's
you know?
cool. That's cool. Yeah, that makes sense because did see that there's the Nike swoosh in a couple of the designs, and so knowing that it's at the Nike HQ makes sense. Um, yeah, and before we hit record too, you were talking about a bit about how in working with the Nets, both New Jersey and then Brooklyn, uh, um, and how just being in that organization, you got connected to so many different opportunities. Even it's a Dad Designer podcast, and kids love Pirates Booty. Even getting to do a bag for Pirates Booty or a couple bags for Pirates Booty. Yeah, talk a little bit about like some of those connections and your time there at the Nets.
My time at the Nets, it definitely was an eye opener to just getting different experiences as far as like how things worked. I even got an idea of like how editing for TV worked, because I think Pizza Hut at one point was one of our sponsors, and I got to see kind of like how reality TV works, so to speak. So the player was supposed to deliver a pizza. He got out the car and they didn't like the shot. So they were like, he needs to get back in the car, and the car needs to drive back around so he could get out again and it looks good. So I got to see things like that. And so that helped me polish up on what does art direction really look like? How do I make something look good? Then I got experiences as far as, like I said, Pirates Booty was one of the sponsors. And I got introduced to the people who did some of the advertising. And so as a result, I did like an activity booklet, and I was able to design a bag for two different flavors. I think it was like sour cream and like pepperoni pizza, which they no longer even offer those, but I still have the designs and guidelines for it. And then, my boss, that the one who hired me, Adam Padilla, he worked a lot on the Pretzel Crisp brand. And so, I got a chance to see his work and how he did a lot of the design and art direction for Pretzel Crisp. And he let me design one of the bags, which was like the chocolate dip covered Pretzel Crisp. But in being in a venue like, with the New Jersey Nets, that would open up you seeing all of these different, brand developers, people who own different kind of companies, whether they were startups. And a lot of time they needed work. And, the good thing is they got to see your work, and they got to touch base with people who could give you credibility. And so if you got that credibility in an introduction, you might end up with a little bit of freelance work. And that's what happened a lot of times. And to be honest with you, even the Nike job for John Thompson, that came about because someone I used to work with at the Nets reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be good to design a court." And I had no idea it was going to be that court. I thought it was going to be like at a playground or something like that, right? And then it ended up being what it was. But all of that is kind of built out through these relationships, and you kind of trying to build a strong reputation for yourself.
And we also briefly chatted about you happened to be at the Nets at the time that they went from the New Jersey Nets to Brooklyn Nets, but you didn't design the new Brooklyn Nets logo, but you were telling me that you got to design a bunch of sub logos. So what was
Yeah,
that like designing those sub logos?
I think it was. I mean, it was a lot of fun for me. I was able to put my stamp on things, and they are still utilizing some of those logos, which means like it stands the test of time. But it was fun. I was able to just look at what was created and kind of build off of those branding assets. So when you're doing things, sometimes you do want to create something from scratch. If you get an opportunity to build something fun and creative, and just as long as it feels like it's part of the larger subset, I think you've done your job. And so I was able to design the Brooklyn Drumline logo, and then I believe the Nets Kids logo, which were all subset brands that fall under the Brooklyn Nets brand.
Yeah, I was just looking at they're called the Brooklyn Beats, the drum line. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yep, Brooklyn Beats. Yep. They still kind of put it up on a jumbotron when they are performing, which is crazy and dope at the same time. And then I was also able to do some of the designs for some of the subsets for Barclay Center, which is Brooklyn boxing. There's Brooklyn hoops, which is like all of the collegiate and high school basketball events that they have at Barclays Center. And then they had this thing called Brooklyn Taste, which I think they stepped away from, which is, like I said, it's like the smorgasbord of all of the different kind of restaurants that were surrounding Brooklyn, whether it was just coming in for like a taste test serving or actually joining the venue and opening up like a small restaurant with on one of the floors in the Barclays Center. So it's definitely a great experience. And I also got to really understand branding and what it's like to put together campaigns, because every season we would kind of come up with the campaign for the Brooklyn Nets, like, different taglines and things of that nature. And so I remember the campaign for Brooklyn Nets when they first moved into Brooklyn was Hello Brooklyn. And so I remember for one of the VPs in advertising, her name was Elisa Padilla. I was so hyped to play her this song, which was Hello Brooklyn, Lil Wayne and Jay-Z, because I felt like that could be the song that was going to play for the season. Elisa Padilla, great advertising mind. She took that, she turned that tagline into the whole campaign. I'm just thinking, play this song whenever the game is on. She was like, play this song. We're going to make this a whole ad campaign. So, Brooklyn is entrenched in all of these different types of communities. So, you have Russians, Asians, like there's all these different. So the Hello Brooklyn worked well, and then they translated it. So you had the Hello Brooklyn campaign, hello in English, hello in Russian, hello in Chinese, and a bunch of different languages. So it was like perfect for the subset in Brooklyn, like as far as like the community aspects of it. And so we did that. And then I got to work on something that I also thought was really cool, which was I took the Brooklyn Nets logo because I was on the ground a lot, and I was in a community and just around. There's so many different neighborhoods within Brooklyn, right? So I came up with an idea. People like to rep their neighborhood. They just love to do that. And so I was like, what if we took the Nets logo that has the Brooklyn under it, and instead of having Brooklyn, rep for that neighborhood? And so we did like Flatbush, Bed-Stuy, Coney Island. We did a bunch of like shirts, and I like pitched it, gambling, like maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. They were like, this is a winner chicken dinner. So the guy who he did all the merchandising, he was like, yo, this is a winner. I feel like people will tap into this. We got with Adidas. I gave them my designs and stuff like that. And at that time, I think now it's Nike with the NBA, but at that time it was Adidas. And Adidas was like, yeah, this is where it's at. So I think they did t-shirts and a couple hats.
That's really cool. It's cool. Does your son watch any games with you now? Have you taken him to Barclays Center or no?
I have not, but my kids, they're not really my kids. I think my youngest son will be into sports, but I think my daughter might be into like sports, but I don't know. My oldest, he seems to be more technical. I feel like he's more
Oh, yeah.
engineering gear. Like he likes to build things. Like we're building a little engine right now, and he likes to build things with all these different types of blocks. So he's definitely creative, but I feel like he may have like more of a architecture or engineering mind. And so I'm just trying to, if that's what he likes, I want him to tap into what he likes. And I think that's like where he is. My daughter likes soccer. And then I feel like my youngest, the way he tries to tackle his brother and sister, I'm going to go with he might be a football guy. I'm not a huge football guy, but if that's what he's going to be into, I'm just going to tap in. So I think that's where they are. And I think they're so active. I don't know if they would sit and watch at this junction in time. I think they may have to be a little bit older. But I would say one of the things that I thought was cool as far as like something that I created at work and my kids were able to interact with it was I worked on this collaboration with Pepsi and that Easter candy Peeps. And so they did like a Peeps flavored soda. And so, there had to be like store displays and all of these things. So, it was for Easter. So I just kind of brought the store display home and my kids rocked out with this like it was a toy. Like they played with it, they interacted with it. And I thought it was cool that my kids like were able to kind of enjoy something that I created, even though it wasn't necessarily for them. Watching them play with it made me feel like it was for them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. I feel like we could talk for another 45 minutes. I'm going to try to wrap us with the two questions that I ask all the guests,
Okay.
which is what do you feel like has been your greatest parenting success so far, and what has been your greatest parenting learning and or failure?
So I guess what I would say is one of my greatest parenting successes is just like paying attention to my kids and paying attention to what their interests are. Just trying to tap into those things. So, my son, like I said, I feel like he has like an engineering mind. And my wife and I really try to tap into that by giving him things that will allow him to build. And then my daughter, I feel like she's really creative, but she's really active in things like soccer and dance. And so is as far as like her creativity, she's like multimedia artist. I feel like she likes to draw, color, but then she also likes to put stickers on things and cut out shapes. So I'm all about just tapping into that. My youngest son, he's still young, but I swear to you, he's all about football. So I went and got him a little Nerf football and he's been tossing it back and forth with me. He's trying to learn how to catch it. He's 1.5. He'll be two soon, but he tosses it to you. And when I tell you he's good at sacking, I'm telling you, he must have been hanging out with Warren Sapp in his other life. I don't know, but he's good at tackling. So I'm going to tap into the football thing until he shows me something different. So I think that's my greatest success. I think one of my learnings is, just being accepting that my oldest son may have a learning disability, right? And so, he is smart. He's great. He's doing what he needs to do, but tapping into the fact that he may have a learning disability and just paying attention to that, I think is my biggest learning. And so I'll be looking for, different things in my children, right? And just know all of your children are different and that they all have different needs, right? And I feel like you can learn that from having clients, right? Because you have clients and all of them have different needs and wants. And so you have to kind of figure out what your clients need. And so that's something that I was able to transfer over from working in creative, is like finding out what those needs are for my kids and following it.
That's really cool. It's a great observation too that only proximity, both the success and the learnings, right? It's only through that proximity, that closeness that you have with your kids that you're even able to pick that up and observe it. So that's really cool. If folks want to find you online or get connected with you, where can they go to do that?
So I feel like the best place to find me would be on Instagram, and it would be Aaron Avenue 55th. It would be the handle, and Avenue is spelled completely out, AVENUE, Aaron Avenue 55th.
I really appreciate you taking the time to sit, talk about kids, talk about your work, and yeah, it's been a great conversation. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, not a problem. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing about other dads doing the same. So thanks again for creating this platform for dads who are also designers to share.